And welcome into Press Box Live. Ross Grimsley will not be on the show tonight, but I'm Stan the Fan from PressBox and PressBoxOnline.com. And once I read our sponsor read, I'm going to introduce you to a face that you're all familiar with and a voice you're all familiar with, great Hall of Famer Jim Palmer. But first, I got to tell you that PressBox Live is brought to you by C3 American Exteriors. Go to their website at c3america.com to get a brand new roof for just the cost of your insurance deductible. That sounds impossible, but the people at C3 America, C3 American Exteriors know how to get that done. And again, as I always point out on Mondays and Wednesdays, when they sponsor these Zooms, you'll have no greater expense at the home you own than fixing or replacing your roof. You got to know the people, you got to like the people, and you got to trust the people. And I can say that about the people at C3 American Exteriors. Joining me now is Jim Palmer. And Jim, how are you, my friend?
Quite well, thanks. Yep.
I'm sorry we were subtracted one left-handed pitcher from tonight's show.
Yeah. Well, Ross has been a long-time friend. Ever since I tried to copy his spitball, but I never could quite get it. No, we were teammates for a number of years. He's a terrific guy. It's funny, you texted me, you said he moved to Bradenton. I figured, now it'd be, either he'll be working at IMG, which is down there. Like John Russell used to be the bench coach for Buck Showalter, I think is one of the instructors there. Or there's a lot of private lessons he can give and help a lot of the youngsters coming up through high school, maybe even below that, and, trying to dream about being major league players, pitchers, whatever.
Hey, Jim, the other night, and of course, we're going to talk about the rebuild. We're going to talk about what you're doing now with the ball club in terms of broadcasting and how you think the progress is going on the rebuild. But the other night, the Orioles did yet another bobblehead night for Jim Palmer. And the camera, and I was there at the game, but I saw the cameras. I'm trying to remember whether it was when I got home or not, but you were waving to the crowd. I had never seen you sort of really soak in that kind of adulation. Does it mean that much to you at this point in your life?
Well, it does. It certainly means a lot to me. It's a little, it's funny when you play. I was reading the Boston Globe today, and the Red Sox came back, and they were no hit into the eighth inning or whatever
right.
by Herman, and then. But they were worried because it was family day. And I was thinking today, because I'm reading, and then they came back and they beat the Yankees, and they're now, 10-3 against them for the year. And Yankees are out of it. I mean, there's no possible way because they have to win the American League East, and they're not as good as Boston. And,
no.
I talked to Eckersley last night, and he said, listen, the Red Sox have gotten a lot of breaks, but they're going to make another move. They're going to get Sale back. He struck out 9 and 3 2/3 innings, didn't walk anybody. So he'll be back on a limited basis, probably for maybe, the 10th of August for the rest of the year, and maybe the postseason if they get there, which looks like they will, and then Tampa Bay is better. And in Toronto, they may try to make a move and whatever. But going back to your question, I was kind of reading that, and I'm thinking, it was so great when, I still have pictures of my girls and, my former wife, Susie, when we were on the field, and, it was Memorial Stadium, and we had great teams, and we went to 6 World Series, but we didn't draw a lot of people, but the fans that came, they were so loyal. So, I think I'm still in touch with that, even though I'm 75. When you broadcast, you're a little, I have Twitter now, so Orioles kind of encourage you to do that. Don D'Agostino, who is our producer, who is one of the great television producers. She used to work for the Angels. She helps us get on, but she always says, count to 10 before you tweet something. Now you can delete it and all that kind of stuff. And then, the Orioles, if you actually say something that's controversial, I'll quickly get something to take it down. I mean, I have maybe done it a couple of times, but they'd already had something on the scoreboard in the 4th inning. So I was kind of instructed to stand up and acknowledge the crowd. And people don't realize this, but even though I did underwear ads for Jockey for 19 years, I am a little bit shy. I always have been. But I do understand that I mean, Tom Davis, always says, you're the only guy that was there for every World Series. You're you kind of were there for the best record in baseball for 20 years, and et cetera, et cetera. So I realized how lucky I was. I could have signed with any team. I was a year before the draft. So things worked out pretty well.
Yeah, they have worked out well for you. What do you make right now of the progress the club has made? And look, Mike Elias came in and he has his way of doing things, and John Angelo's bought into it. It's kind of a scorched earth policy, and he's starting all over. And he had a year of the pandemic where there wasn't a lot of development going on. But what do you make of the progress of the club organizationally? The product you're seeing night in and night out when you broadcast isn't great, but again, what do you think of the progress?
Well, I got to do the Marlins tomorrow, so I did their scorecard or my scorecard. Orioles are 34 and 64, so 30 games under 500. They won 3 in a row.
Right.
They're not a great team at home, but they did win 3 in a row. They give up a lot of runs at home. I mean, the team ERA at home is horrendous. It's 5.29. I think there's some talk of maybe taking the fences back like they did when they wanted to try to coax Mike Messina, which would have been a really good thing to do, to stay here and not go to your division rivalry, the Yankees, and end up in the Hall of Fame. Because I mean, I always said, and I mean this sincerely, I don't know if he could have pitched the amount of innings I did or complete games, but he was as good as I was. I mean, he pitched in the steroid era. I mean, he was a marvelous pitcher, and they let him go. They certainly, when they signed him for 3 years, they could have gone back, given him a signing bonus. He was taking a lot of flack from Tom Glavine because he signed under market. The Orioles could have recognized that. They could have given him a signing bonus. They could have extended him, and so on and so on. So, but this is a tough place to pitch. And I talked to Mike Elias, and he said, it's not like we haven't discussed maybe moving the fences back 8 feet, but they did, when they were trying to, keep, as I said, coax Mike to stay here. Listen, we knew Mancini, one of the great stories. We knew he's a really good player when he's healthy. He had a marvelous year in 2019 with highest batting average, highest home runs, highest RBIs. He's a good guy, the perfect guy you want on your team in the community. I don't think anybody ever thought that Mullins, I always used to say you look like Al Bunbury. I don't think he realized that was a compliment. And he's turned out he's going to hit more home runs than Al. But if he hits 280 lifetime, and this, of course they've changed with the rules and the substance, things like that, which you can talk volumes about. But if he ends up with a 280 lifetime batting average, he's going to be a marvelous player in this day and age. He can go get the ball. He doesn't have a real strong arm, but he hits the cutoff, man. He knows that. He gets rid of it quickly. He can go get the ball in this ballpark. He doesn't have Paul Blair's fence awareness, because nobody does. Nobody could go to the wall and jump vertically. Better than Paul Blair. Never hit a fence.
Best defensive center fielder I've ever
seen. He didn't. I mean, there were other guys that threw a little bit better, but I saw him in Puerto Rico, and there were a couple of fields that didn't have warning tracks. He never hit a fence because he just knew where the wall was. So Mullins is a player. Austin Hayes, I saw him in 2017. I said, what if this kid can stay healthy? Because even then, next spring he didn't do some rotator cuff. He got stronger and bigger, but didn't do a total body thing. Hurt his shoulder, then he hurt his wrist, then he hurt his ankle. Now it's the hamstrings. You're seeing he's a pretty good player when he stays on the field. Ryan Mountcastle, I was talking to Bob Carpenter, who does the Nationals. He says, I'm calling him Lord Mountcastle because he played really well in a limited amount of games, only 6 games against the Nationals. So, number 1 draft choice. BJ Surhoff said to Gary Kendall in AA, he said, when did he hurt his arm? He said, he didn't. He was the number 1 draft choice that they got for his bat. And I mean, I could see that 4 years ago when he'd get in a bat in spring training. He get into a hitter's count and the bat he has bat speed. So he still has that. He's learning not to chase. He's going to be a really good offensive player for the Orioles. So there's your kind of your nucleus. The rest of the guys, Santander, if he stayed, this freak ankle injury when they were in Marlins. He had a really good year last year, 40 hits, 25 extra base hits. But, now all of a sudden you start looking at the numbers and, he's been hurt. He's had an oblique. He's had, now he's got the COVID. He's a better low ball hitter, and maybe the league has found that, and maybe he's always been a very aggressive hitter. But he's a guy that you could pencil in. But then the Orioles are rebuilding, Stan, as you know, or as we're talking about. They don't want to spend a lot of money, and he's at maybe 2 million something.
Yeah,
So he's a
non-tender guy next year.
Well, I don't know about that. I think he's a trade guy. Maybe because some other team may want him and they'll give him something. But I think the hardest thing, and when I talked to Mike probably 3 weeks ago when they had a workout at the stadium, I saw him down the field, so I called him, and I think timing all this. You got Grayson Rodriguez who could pitch in the big leagues now, but they're not going to let him.
Right.
You got Rutschman who could be catching in the big leagues, but they're not going to let him. Bauman pitched well, so he's had five really good starts at AA. AA is just as close as the big leagues as AAA. So you'll probably see him in maybe late September or August. I mean, but the key, if you're going to be a contending team, even if you're going to contend in 23, not 22, you got to get these guys innings. So that's the big disconnect. The minor league hitters didn't get their at bats, so you don't really know who's who. And they're working their way up through the minors. And then the other thing is you got to have pitchers that can pitch 150, 160 innings if you're contend. And then if you get in the postseason, what are you going to do? Shut them down in September like they did to Strasburg with the Nationals?
Right.
I talked to Davey early in the year when they were talking about it. I said, well, let them miss some starts now, and it was like July. I said, dum-dum, which is our affectionate nickname for Davey. I said, back them off now. You guys are probably going to the postseason. They didn't do it. So listen, the rebuild is what it is. Don't think that Dave Wallace, Tom Cheedy, and I went to Peter Angelos and professed some of the things that Mike Elias is doing. Now, it doesn't mean that, that we were any smarter or he's any dumber or whatever, because he's got a plan. I wish he would have handled some of the people that I know that are very good coaching people.
Yep.
But he feels that he can do it, maybe not as much with the personal touch or with a new wave personal touch.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen him. I mean, I saw BJ Surhoff. Are you trying to tell me he can't help a young player, not like to pop up a ball into the net in batting practice, or Bordick or Crowley or Scotty McGregor? With all our soft tossing lefties, Scotty couldn't teach him a changeup, or maybe, this. And the reason I say that, when they let Rick Adair go, and after he had already ruined, Arrieta.
Arrieta, right.
Yeah, I'm walking down the ramp at about 3:00 in the morning when we got off one of the road trips. We're coming back to get our bags and get our cars, and I'm walking with Jim Johnson, and I said, Scotty McGregor became the bullpen coach, and all of a sudden the bullpen started pitching well, and Bill Castro became the regular pitching coach, and all of a sudden the pitching staff started pitching well. And I said, what do you had Scotty in AA. He said, you know what? The great thing about Scotty McGregor is he never says anything unless it means something. Now that's quite a quality for a coach.
That's quite a quality, no question about it.
So again, so I'll leave you with this: the timing for the rebuild.
Yeah,
it's not, it's not like you just snap your fingers and you
pull it all together.
Yeah. You look at Houston; they already had Altuve, they already had Springer, they had Keuchel, who's going to be a Cy Young Award winner when the team got better. They were able to get Correa in one draft, and also McCullers. Then the next year they were able, or 2 years. Maybe 2 years later, they were able to get Bregman because they messed up a number 1 draft choice with the left-handed pitcher Brady Aikens, and they were able to, get him like number 3 or number 5 or whatever. So things have to fall into place. The Kjerstad, problem they have, the health problem that he has, really, when you're number 1 draft,
a big setback.
Yeah, it's a big setback. Now, hopefully, he'll be able to play at some level, either the end of this year or next year. But he's probably going to be 23, 24 at that time. So again, syncing this all up is probably, it looks like they have a lot of good prospects. Looks like they have a lot of good young arms. Looks like they have a lot of good young hitters that are athletic, which kind of you want, because when we went to Peter Angelos, we said, listen, you spent $27 million the last 3 or 4 years. Where are the athletes? Where are the Adam Jones of the world? And I said, Peter, you need to ask those questions. Well, those questions have been answered because I think Mike's done a good job with the draft. But again, it's not like some of these things weren't suggested in years past.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'd like to think that if Dan Duquette had the same freedom to do some of the things that he would have wanted to do, I think we would have had Latin players here 10 years ago, you know.
Well, I don't know. We were riding up on the bus to Yankee Stadium. He said, he goes, well, the international draft it's like winning the lottery. And I said, yes, but Dan, just think how happy you are. I've never played the lottery. If you ever won a lottery, so, and I mean, all you have to do is look at some of the rosters and, Altuve's $15,000. Of course, they cost him $170,000 or $170 million to keep him.
Right,
So, you
right.
got to be prepared to do that. And, Jim Kramer down in with the Astros is willing to do it and has the money and they draw well. It's a huge city. I looked at the attendance or the population of Houston. It's like 6.4 million people.
Yeah.
Pretty ballpark, roof, blah, 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 good franchise and whatever. But, a lot of things fell in place for them too. And they had enough young players to get Verlander. They had enough young players to draft Garrett Cole. They had enough money to go get Gurriel out of Cuba for $47 million. So, it all has to kind of be put together, and hopefully the Orioles will have the wherewithal financially. And I think Michael Elias knows what he's doing. Whether it's all going to work out, you're just going to have to see.
I got to ask you. You observe and you probably talk to Chris Holt quite a bit. What do you think of him so far?
Well, it's been a tough year for him because it's his first year. He had Brocale take the ERA down a run.
Right.
In a very again it was 60 games. So but they went from the highest ERA to 450 something last year. Right. So now you got the worst ERA, especially the starters. I look at we're kind of like bad Wi-Fi. We're in and out with. The good thing lately is the starters have gotten a little bit better. I think I talked to him a couple of years ago and he said, what do you think the most important thing is? And they have the cameras that show your spin rate and how you release the ball and all that. We're in a different era now. You don't throw near as much. If Ross Grimsley was with us tonight, we used to throw a lot. We used to pitch every fourth day. We used to, do your side.
Didn't you used to run a lot too?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Well, you never wanted anybody to be in better shape than you. So, right. And they could be as good a shape. But, we'd wait for the West Coast teams to come into Baltimore. And you're hoping that, hot, 97, humid, you're going, good luck tonight. You don't have a chance. I walked Wilbur Wood on a Sunday afternoon before the DH just to put him with 2 outs to put him at first base. And it would look like there was an oasis over on first base because he was sweating so much. But yes, conditioning. But back to Chris Holt, it's difficult. You have a lot of young pitchers. I don't think that we really can blame him for Dean
not
Kramer.
blaming him.
No. Or even Dean Kramer. So Break Kale's here. Dean Kramer looked like the next coming of, I don't know, some guy that, was going to win 16 to 18 games and going to pitch well, did throw a home run in 4 games, even though he did go up 7 runs. But I was listening to all the Zooms in spring training and I swear to God, it was like a cult. They were all saying, well, I know I can pitch here. I know that I have the ability to do it. I know that I'm going to be able to throw all my pitches in the strike zone and all that. And I'm thinking, I pitched 4,000 innings. And number one, I never thought that I knew that I could pitch here. The only way I knew I could pitch here, because you get to a certain level, is your next start. It's like owning a restaurant stand. You come in, you have a great, you own a restaurant, the service is great, the food's great, the place is packed on Friday night. The Baltimore Sun restaurant critic, John Dorsey, comes in on Saturday night. The chef's got a headache. He's not getting along with his wife. A couple of waiters don't show up. They drop some trays of food, and what's the review going to look like? That's the way I always. Yeah. That's the way I thought about pitching. So, but when I'm listening to the Zooms and then the micro and the macro and all that, I told Chris it's as simple as that. I said it's great to have as much information as you can, spin rates and all that, and of course we can talk about that in a second. because that's changed since
Yeah.
the beginning of the year. But the bottom line is, can you throw the ball low and away? If you're right-handed, can you throw the ball low and away to a right-hander? If you're left-handed, can you throw it low and away to lefty? Because if you can do that, you have the perfect windup. So if I'm going to get all this information, whether it's what quadrant to pitch in, or, you know, if I release it here, my spin rate's better, and if I'm off to the side. Elrod Hendricks used to say, I can tell whether you're throwing your fastball right, your thumb's under the ball. You know, so now a camera has to do it, but we used to throw it. So we throw a good slider. If you threw a bad one, you had to discern the difference between how that felt. There's not as much feeling in pitching now. I talked to Dave Wallace, who was here, terrific pitching guy.
Yeah.
Now he went to the Seattle throwing school, the Texas, the Florida pitching ranch, and he said they're all chasing velocity. And you know what? Radar guns don't get hitters out. We know that. So when I see the Spencer Watkins of the world come up here, or even Alexander Wells throwing 88, but throwing on the ball, Watkins, he pitched like we used to. He threw a fastball low and away. If they didn't hit it, he threw another one. Second time through the order, he maybe showed him another pitch. Now, if you're a pitcher, if you're Jorge Lopez with great stuff, who looks like he hits wind shear somewhere in the fourth and especially the fifth inning, you're going, they've seen everything. Dennis Martinez ended up having a marvelous career, but I'd be talking to some of the guys on the field, and I'd say, how come you guys hit Dennis Martinez? They said, well, he'll throw us 294 low and away fastballs. He said, and we know he's going to throw us a curveball, and that's easier to hit than his fastball. So I think that 2021 for the Oriole pitchers, and even Chris Holt, as his leader, and Darren Holmes out in the bullpen and more so the starters. This is a year where they're going to have to find out what they do best. So for Dean Kramer, I watched him in spring training, and I go, geez, you got a pretty good fastball and a good curveball. You cut the ball every time you get into a hitter's count. What about a low and away fastball and let them fly out? Or how about a low and away fastball down and away, strike one? If they don't hit it, throw strike two. They're at the same place. If they don't hit that, throw another one. I mean, it's like the game has changed, and I don't understand why. You can get all the analytics you want, but at the end of the day, you still have to make good pitches. And I used to know, people would say, why did you move your outfielders? I said, because I'm going to throw the ball in the outside corner. And maybe they don't know that. I do, not all the time, but I want them to be playing because I kind of know what's going to happen if I do that. And if you do it more often than not, yeah, exactly. So, so Chris Holt, hey, tough year. I'm looking at my scorecard. So the Orioles, when you talk about home runs, they've hit 30. They've given up 39 home runs they hit 39. Given up 39 home runs at home. Or that's the Marlins. I'm sorry. The home run rate. If you look at the Orioles, have hit 64 home runs at Camden Yards in 6 less games than they played on the road, where they've only hit 47. So the ball flies there. It's a tough place to pitch. You really do have to make quality pitches. And when you do, you got a chance. Even John Means, as good as he is, yesterday, what was it? One fly ball.
Yeah.
By a real good hitter,
Yeah, real good hitter.
Yeah.
Jim, one of the fascinating guys, and I didn't give him a chance to be on the team this long this season. And frankly, I thought Felix Hernandez was going to make the team back in spring training. Matt Harvey made the team. And at different times, he's looked like he knows what he's doing out there. Has that been an intriguing story to you this year? And all of a sudden, to get 12 shutout innings in a row all of a sudden, pretty amazing, isn't it?
It is. I don't want to take anything away from it. Kansas City's not it's a great ballpark to pitch in, and he pitched well. 6 shutout innings there. And then, the Nationals, no Schwarber, no Castro because of domestic violence. So it's a good lineup. So you can kind of pitch around guys. But he got Soto out twice on good changeups. Years ago, I went up to after Matt Harvey, was the Dark Knight in 2013. And then when he came back from Tommy John, I went up to Jupiter, Florida to meet him because I used to watch him and I'm saying, it's the way we used to pitch. This is the way Nolan Ryan used to pitch and Carlton Jenkins and, even Catfish. When when you got in trouble, you went to another level. And I'm watching a Met game one night and I'm going, oh, it's scintillating. It was that good. So and then I'm hitting golf balls one day, and when he's with the Mets, and I just read the day before in the New York Post he was out late and blah blah blah, and he came running over, so we kind of knew each other. And then Scott Boras said, "Listen, you pitched later in your career." He's only 32, so he's not that late in his career. He still has a good fastball. He still is learning how to pitch. I wish he'd have a little more fun out there, but maybe that's his persona. He doesn't.
He looks physically miserable out there.
Well, yeah, we had a guy. I said, you look like you're going to the dentist for a root canal. But the last two starts, and he's been unlucky. I don't know, had a 7.80 ERA, but again, if you don't pitch, Stan, if we gave up 3 or 4 runs, we're going to pitch 7 or 8 innings to keep our ERA where we wanted it to be. So, so it was kind of a situation where, he's healthy. He still throws 93 to 95 when he has a good slider, which he's had the last 2 games. He's a very effective pitcher. He uses his curveball and his left hand, and a change up to lefties. So he's done a nice job.
Is part of his problem though, Jim? The guy I want to compare him to is that he's a sort of a right-handed Frank Banana who really learned how to be a skillful pitcher. Does Matt Harvey have that in him to kind of be different?
Not yet. No.
Yeah.
Tanana, Andy Etchebarren caught Tanana. And, he also caught Cuellar McNally. And, when they were winning 20 games and Mike was winning Cy Youngs and Dave was winning 20 games 4 times. And he goes, nobody pitched inside to right-handers better than Frank Tanana. And I did a game where it was the last game in 1987 for ABC. It was Tanana against Jimmy Key. It was Toronto had lost the last week, and they would lose 1-0 on a Larry Herndon hit a home run, and Tanana beat him 1-0. Sparky Anderson came out, gave him a big hug and a kiss. And I'm doing the game, and I'm thinking, geez, what if Earl had done that to me? And then I said, well, he couldn't have jumped that high. But anyway, that was Tanana throwing about 86 miles per hour. Mesmerized me because he had a great changeup and whatever. I think it's easier to be crafty when you're a left-hander. Okay. But what I did like is that I thought the quality of the secondary pitches, forget the slider, the changeup and the curveball, were better. And for Matt, he's 32 years old. If he wants to continue to do this, he can be a number 3 or 4 starter. I don't know if he's ever going to be the Dark Knight again, but that's all right.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. And you know what he's doing for this ball club? What he's doing for this club is giving them innings, and they need it. Because this bullpen, when they took Jorge Lopez out the other night, I kind of said, I love Brandon Hyde to death, and I do.
Yep.
I really think he's a good guy.
Yep.
But I wanted Lopez to finish because this bullpen is going to be, they're going to have oxygen masks on in September. They pitch so much.
Hey, I've got one last question to ask you. I'm trying to get as many people as I can on the record. It's an off-the-wall topic. Trevor Bauer, do you see him ever pitching in the major leagues again?
Well, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, and I think that it's going to come to that. There have been a lot of guys that have been real good pitchers that maybe didn't have a lot of common sense. So
he exposed that he did. Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually, a couple of years ago, people kind of like when I was talking to Albert Bell when he was with the White Sox, and Hawk Harrelson said, who never goes on the field. Hawk goes, what were you talking to Albert about? He never talks to anybody. And I said, well, ask him about his golf game. I read that he was an avid golfer. So I actually talked to Trevor Bauer, and other guys don't want to do that. But again, like I said, information is important. He's a unique guy, and, as a pitcher, and, he's done a lot to get cheated because, he told everybody with the illegal substances, the only way, because this, they have the Bauer meter or something is the way they actually look at spin rate and whatever. He said, listen, the only way you can do it is to put a foreign substance on your thing. And then he pitched 1 inning back in 2019, and his RPMs, the backspin on the ball went up like 300 RPMs. And then last year he became the Cy Young Award winner, to his credit, because everybody was cheating. He was the best of the cheaters. And, he got $125 million. But this is not Charles Barkley, who once said, not in my contract, I need to be a role model. you do have to be a role model. You do have to be a good citizen. And if you're going to have whatever proclivities he has
Yep.
off the field, you better be a little more careful.
That's exactly what I would say. I think it's going to be a fascinating story. I don't think there's any way he can ever pitch again. And I think it's going to be fascinating when the Dodgers try and get out of the contract to see the MLBPA defend him. But I know I've got to let you get out of here. I want you to give a 30-second plug to why Dr. Charles Fine is the best dentist in Baltimore.
Well, because I'm going to go to dinner with him and hopefully he's going to pick up. He just texted me to see if we're still on. So I better text him back because, probably about 6 weeks ago, was on a Sunday. He said, we're going to have dinner. There's a restaurant up in Cockeysville, Vito's, which
Sure.
in the interim I've gone to, but
It's great.
so he never texted me all week. So I come home, I'm watching, I don't know, one of the golf things is on. And so I figure if I don't hear from him, I'm not going to go all the way to Cockeysville to eat by myself out on the sidewalk because I wouldn't get a table. I have to get it to go and eat in my car. And he says, hey, we're waiting. And then it rained. So I didn't, and then his wife Phyllis would not sit indoors because we were still wearing masks and all that kind of stuff. So going out to a place called Xenia in Columbia,
All right,
which is it was a kind of a Greek restaurant or whatever. So
all right. Enjoy the meal. Tell Charles I said hello. Charlie and you and I share a dentist. That's the only thing we share, and our love for the Baltimore Orioles. Jim Palmer, thank you very much.
One thing, Stan, grow a beard and we'll have another thing in common.
All right. All right.
I'm shaving Friday morning.
All right. I
But
think
I'm
it
going to
looks
do
good.
it.
I
Well, I
think
know,
it
but
looks good.
I'm going to do it when I have like 10 days off. So if I don't like it, I can grow it back.
All right. Jim Palmer,
Okay.
thank you
Take
very
care.
much.
Oh, you're
All right.
welcome.
Pressbox Live has been brought to you by C3 American Exteriors. Go to their website at c3america.com. And that is where you can go to c3america.com to get a brand new roof for just the cost of your insurance deductible. I say it every Monday and Wednesday when I do these shows, these Zoom videos. They're all brought to you by C3 American Exteriors. And I always say that if you own a home, the most expensive thing you'll have to do is fix or replace your roof. You got to know the people you're dealing with. You have to like them and you have to trust them. And all three of those things, C3 American Exteriors checks the box. You'll like them. You can trust them. And you can go to sleep on them cherries. All right. That's it for tonight. Thanks to Jim Palmer. And we'll see you Wednesday night. Gary Stein and I will have on Kevin Rocklitz from the Baltimore Ravens to talk about how the Baltimore Ravens are going to make their way in this new world of legalized sports betting, which will take place sometime during the 2021 season. Good night, everybody. We'll talk to you soon, Wednesday night. Bye.